we have Quarlo. Pronouns are he, him, from Texas. And I'm really excited to get this gentleman on because he used to own a small porn production company, and I'm very interested to hear what he has to say.
Me too.
Quarlo, welcome to the show.
Hello, gentle persons. Thanks for taking my call. I've been waiting for an episode like this because back in 30 years ago, back in the early 90s, I started a little in-house porn production, which by today's standards was barely R-rated. But I wanted to talk about the ethics of the porn industry and how much it's changed. And I should tell you, I'm an old person. I'm an old fucker. I'm 64. So this was pretty challenging for me 30 years ago. But I started writing short stories because I wasn't finding the kind of stories I wanted. So I started writing stories where the woman character in the erotica was the hero or the smart one, or the savior, of the story. And I sold every story I wrote. So then I thought, well, I'm not seeing the kind of erotica I want to see. And I was all about big breasts. So I kind of put my shingle out and started recruiting unusually endowed women. I would often interview the women, in the video, and it wasn't, "Have you ever had a threesome?" It's, what is the negative attention? How do you feel about the negative attention? What's the worst thing about having breasts that size? And put a face on these women so that men knew this is a problem. Having J cups is a problem for women. I also paid royalties to the top models, and I had a money back guarantee. If wait, what?
Sorry,
you just got Sinn all excited.
Wow, I cannot believe you did that. Like, you want to talk ethical? Amazing.
Well, there was, this was 92 when I started this little company, and there was, the big houses like Evil Angel, there were so many Chuck trainers out there. There were so many people doing ill to women. And I never put the move on the models. I paid them royalties. I interviewed them as a real person. Oh, and I had a money-back guarantee. If you bought one of my tapes and you didn't like it, you send it back, I'll give you your money back.
Wow.
Oh, also, quite by accident, I ended up doing the first video. As I say, I was all about huge breasts. And I did the first video I did was with Norma Stitz, who went on to get in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the world's largest breasts. And my gosh, she did. So anyway, I just wanted to say it can be done ethically. And like I say, this was basically just R-rated topless stuff. I didn't do any sexual activity. I mean, this was Texas in the 90s.
Which was probably risky enough at that time, right?
Yeah, you don't want to see pitchforks and torches, outside your house, at this point. But the other thing I was going to say was, the thing that amazes me about erotica or porn or whatever you want to call it is it has opened doors to me. It has expanded my sexual preference. There were things that I found once I discovered them visually I didn't know I liked until I saw them.
Right.
Is that a common experience? Does that happen?
Oh, no question. You're actually kind of cribbing from my notes for this next section of the conversation, because I do think it's important that we ask ourselves, like, okay, if porn is, quote, acceptable, there still needs to be some return on investment. Like, what is the why of porn? And I think that there are a lot of good answers to that question, but certainly one of them is to expand your mind and to recognize aspects not only of yourself, but also of the world around you that you might otherwise be completely unfamiliar with. Like, how many people in the last 20 minutes learned the word foodinaria and suddenly discovered that, oh goodness, maybe I need to open up another tab.
I've been spending a lot of time with Futanari, with those women in dungeons with gigantic penises. It's fantastic. It's awesome.
Hell yeah. And it kind of, when we're talking about, like, you're mentioning that it can be done ethically, and I think these days we know that, and it just made me think about something like a study that I heard about, and that, a lot of the times the people who are the fans of porn, like not the people who just like watch it casually, but people who follow their favorite porn stars, interact with them on like maybe OnlyFans or Twitter, and then go to conventions like porn conventions. um, Part the way the study was like asking questions about, sort of feminism and how they felt about porn stars and stuff like that. And the men who would go to these conventions, like, by and far rated way higher in like basically their feminism, basically
Mm-hmm.
their like understanding of women's, autonomy and equality and things like this. So, I think that goes really a long way to show that that black and white sort of binary way of looking at porn as like it's either good or it's bad, or unethical.
Right.
It's so limiting, because it's obvious and clear that a lot of people watch it and feel like a reverence, in the same way where you watch a basketball game and you look up to sports player.
Yeah, I think
See,
one thing
everybody's
that
got
is
their own different kinks. Sorry,
Exactly.
Laura, go
yeah,
ahead.
one thing that's really great about this is we were just talking about like fetishizing people and whether or not it's okay to like put too much emphasis on one body type or another. But what you did is like you had this desire that you didn't really see represented in the porn industry, and so you decided to represent it, but you did it in a way that was more honoring the women. And that's
Mhm.
something that we tend to kind of miss the point of. We kind of tend to think that because a person is showing off their body that they're being exploited, or that somehow it's not ethical, or they're being treated badly, and that's not necessarily the case, right? And so what you've done is kind of illustrated the line between or rather the distinction against fetishizing a person versus honoring body types and using porn as a way of honoring certain kinds of sex and sexuality and certain kinds of
Yes.
body types
And
and stuff, because you just don't see it in everyday media the way that you can't appreciate it in the same way.
Mm.
and honoring the agency of the performers to say yes to things that are exciting to them. You mentioned Evil Angel, and yeah, there's been a ton of Evil Angel tends to err on the side of more aggressive, right? But I've made dozens and dozens of movies for Evil Angel directors, and especially in my earlier days when I identified more as a sub, I was like, yes, please spit on my face and hold me down by the throat. And, like, I want to feel this way because
Mm.
I enjoy feeling that way. And then for, outside viewers to look at that and claim on my behalf that I'm being abused or degraded. It's like, well, yeah, but I signed up for this degradation because it turns me on. You know what I mean?
And
Mhm.
because
So
I have autonomy. Like, even if you
exactly.
Yes.
fucking hated it, which, we would hate
Your
that
choice.
for you, but
Sure.
even if you were miserable, you are making your own choice. I mean, we've
Yes.
talked before about the coercive nature of our society and the realities of capitalism, etc. But
Yes.
it is absolutely denying people, particularly women, their autonomy to suggest that.
Yes. Beautiful
Well,
point.
things have changed a great deal now in that thanks to the interweb, the performers themselves are so much more in control of what they
Yes.
do.
Mhm.
I
Mm.
think, and Evil Angel, I don't know, I haven't followed it very closely, but back in the day, I'm talking 30 years ago, Evil Angel was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad company. But I think things have changed. I think that now that women have more, any performer has more self direction and autonomy in what they do and who they do it with is a great thing.
Totally. And I know a lot of Evil Angel has hired lots of female directors too these days. And so, but I think just porn as an industry, when I think about porn in the 90s, I have a completely different vision than in the early 2000s when I entered versus the 2010s, where, we're kind of like on the tail end of that now. Each of those, eras, it was a different picture was painted of
Mm.
pornography. And I think that kind of shows that it's evolving, and thoughts are evolving. And I think as a culture, we're trying to evolve. And
Trying.
some people are trying really hard to keep that from
Yeah.
happening.
Right.
But I think everything
Well,
sort of goes towards goes towards more acceptance and progress, no matter how hard they're trying to push back.
Well, things have changed so much. My introduction to written erotica was through mainstream bestseller novels like The Patriot or The Godfather, and there's some pretty explicit sexuality in those. And I thought, wow, this is cool. This is really interesting.
Yeah, I remember when I was in 8th grade, a girl brought a romance novel to school, and she was reading this passage, and then like more kids were going around her, and then like the teacher was like, "What are you guys looking at?" And then he took the book and got in the front of the class and started reading the passage, and we were so embarrassed, and we like ran out of the classroom. But I'm like, that was 100% pornography. Like they were talking about penises and vaginas, very explicit, but it was a romance novel, so somehow that was okay, but and it is.
Well, it'll be interesting to see the future. It'll be interesting to see the future of pornography. Oh, and as a side note, you probably all know about the Henry Miller v. California decision that established the three-prong test for obscenity. What if that case were to come up before this Supreme Court? Can you imagine?
Yeah, that notion of things devolving very quickly does come to mind. It is scary to think about how much 50-year-old precedent might be vulnerable right now. But oh my God, we had just a brief moment of enjoying talking about porn, and then all of a sudden, government came back into it.
Oh, you wrote the word tits. It's pornography. Get rid of it. Well, guys, I will thank you so much. I've waited for this opportunity to talk about erotica, but you published erotica, and I really appreciate you letting me on. Oh, by the way, you're all too young to remember this, but my name Quarlo, Outer Limits episode, Quarlo Clopregni, REMTNDO. Anybody reference that?
No, afraid not. I do enjoy the Outer Limits.
Episodes Outer Limits,
yeah. From the 90s.
You children. It's a Harlan Ellison episode called Soldier with Michael and Sarah. Anyway, that's where I got the name. Gentle persons, thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, thank you.
For the
Take care.
call. I appreciate it.